Hello and welcome to Entrepreneur TV Live. We are excited to have you here today. I have a very special guest for you. Her name is Suzanne Evans. Suzanne is the owner and founder of Driven Inc., which is the tell it like it is, no fluff boss of business building. She provides support, consulting, and business development skills to over 30,000 clients enrolled in her business building programs. Suzanne started Driven Inc. from a spare room in a crowded apartment, and in just a few years, grew the company to serve thousands of clients. Having gone from a secretary to surpassing the seven-figure mark herself, she has supported her private clients to grow multi-million dollar businesses. Welcome to the call, Suzanne.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I am really excited about the topic that we're covering today. So, today's topic is your virtual stage strategy, how to captivate and convert any audience. Now, of course, over the last number of years, the virtual stage has expanded, in my opinion, exponentially. And I think including that in our strategy is a brilliant idea.
Sure.
Um, so, what What inspired you to be focusing on virtual stage
Yeah,
strategies?
I don't. I've always focused on stages, right? And I don't know that everybody should put virtual stages in their strategy. If
Mm,
you're ready for it, if it's right for you. But here's what people forget. People forget that filling rooms is filling rooms. Whether you're in a hotel ballroom or you're online, you have to put butts in seats. And if you haven't made those connections to be able to put butts in seats, if you haven't worked on building your list, I have people who have a zero list size and will hold an event with 200 people in it, but it's because they booked themselves for 10 speaking gigs and can turn those speaking gig opportunities into seats at their event. So while it's a great strategy, most people weren't doing virtual events pre COVID. I used to do in person events with 1,000 people in attendance. And we've been doing that for 13 years. And when COVID happened, what the hell were you going to do? Right. So
mhm.
people have been doing webinars, people have been doing live streams, and of course, some people have been doing some virtual events, but it was very rare. And it was really not the thing that it is now. What we realized was, oh my God, it can work. It can work when you're forced into something and you figure it out. And so there's now entire industries built off of virtual events that didn't exist pre-COVID. So, what's really great about it for the beginner or the more advanced or the middle tier person is um, you have lower cost. Some of my event budgets in person were $750,000 just
Mhm.
so some people get confused. Virtual events aren't cheap; they're not free. In some cases, people will do them in their home, or just like I'm sitting here with you today. But in our case, and most of my clients' case, we use a studio because you want to be able to have a lot of different options for people seeing each other. The problem with virtual events is that people go, "I'm going to do one," and what they really do is a webinar. And then they go, "Oh, I didn't
Mm.
results. Oh, I didn't sell as many people." And people can handle what you and I are going to do here today on a live for 45 minutes to 2 hours, right? You can push
Mhm.
people to 3 hours if you give them a nice chunky break or whatever. But if it's a true virtual event, somebody can sit in their home office for 3 days and not pee and not notice, right? That's the creation of a true virtual event where you feel like you're in Arizona at an event, or you feel like you flew to Orlando and you feel like you're in the room with a group of people. And so it's not as simple as like, oh, I'm going to do something virtually. It truly is a model all on its own.
Okay. Okay. So there was a lot of juicy stuff in there already. I really liked how you emphasized at the very beginning when we got started that filling rooms is filling rooms. It doesn't matter if it's a virtual room, a live room. It doesn't matter. That's what you need to do is fill them. And I liked how you also emphasized that some of your clients they don't have a list, but they've used speaking gigs in order to fill the room. So that's part of that strategy. Yes, your list is part of the strategy, but strategies don't just include one thing. That's what
That's
I heard from that.
absolutely, absolutely.
And so give me a couple of examples of what you would say a virtual event is, because you made a very clear distinction there that virtual events are not webinars.
Well, a webinar is back in the day, I was just making this joke this weekend at an event that I was like, I remember when we all used to go get on the teleclass, right? I mean, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have Facebook Live. And so a webinar is an online training, right? It doesn't really
Hmm.
matter how the person presents or what their style is, but it's an online training. You're expecting PowerPoint slides, or you're expecting some coaching or consulting, or, and it is, here's a topic and I'm going to train you on it. And
Right.
hopefully, if the person is a good communicator, that's going to feel like somewhat of an experience. But an event
Hmm.
experience. So you think about how you walk into a conference. Oh, there's registration, and sometimes there's sponsors, and there's an opening, and there's music playing, and there's an opportunity to network with other people, and there are special upgrades, and there are opportunities for you to get into group in group dynamics, in facilitation. There are multiple speakers. It truly kind of goes, for lack of a better term, goes from an online training to a online show. And I want you to think more TV. I want you to think more. I even say sometimes that I think a really good example is a telethon. Like, think about the old
Okay.
school telethons, right? They're entertaining. And, if they're going to talk to you, no disrespect on this topic, but MS as a topic is not the most interesting thing to talk about for 7 hours, right? If you don't have MS or you don't know someone who has MS, it might be interesting to go, oh, so there's some facts about that. But if you were to listen to a 6 hour TV show on MS, you would probably tune out if there wasn't some connection to that. But the minute you add entertainment between it, the minute
Hmm.
you add a cause around it, the minute you make it connected, and that you create an opportunity for people to feel like they're a part of something, they're part of a movement, it changes the whole dynamic. So one thing is an online lecture, and I don't mean that in the way that, I hope it's not just a lecture. I hope people present great and they do engage the audience. But the other is truly a show, and it's got to sustain for 3 days. So you've got to keep moving. You've got to change the energy. You've got to change the vibration. You've got to have a multitude of speakers. You've got to get people when you're like, oh, I think they're in a low, let me bring them to a high. You've got to have them have a multitude of experiences so their engagement remains really high for 72 hours or 48, whatever your event is. But a typical traditional event model is usually 3 days.
So what I'm hearing is it really is taking that live event and creating that same experience only virtually. So you do have, the breaks, the breakouts, the like you said, networking, you have an opening, you have your sponsors, you have some kind of a, like I'm kind of making up things as I'm listening, is, like have a grab bag of some kind. Because a lot of times at those events, you're given a little gift bag as you walk in, and um, entertainment in between. I'm really hearing that it is so much more than just, here, let me teach you something. And I might throw some activities in to keep you from falling asleep in your chair.
Absolutely. I would say the other piece to be aware of is that you do have to present in a different way virtually than you do in person, right?
Ah,
Typically, virtually you need about 10 times the energy level. And I know that'll sound crazy to some people, but it's absolutely true. There truly is a wall that you are having to reach through to meet people. You also have to recognize people's processing styles. So some people process visuals, some people process auditory, some people are kinesthetic. Well, you can think about, even what we're doing right here, Velma, can be auditory and visual. They're seeing us, they're hearing us. But if we were doing this for more than a couple of hours, people need to move. People need to be engaged in something. They also need to talk to somebody else besides us. They need to hear other voices. So thinking about all the processing models that happen fairly naturally in person have to be manufactured in a really positive way virtually.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So, you said, we're presenting differently than we would be live. Like I know, so my son is a musician and he's been learning how to engage the audience, right? And his mentor said, be yourself only 200%. So what I'm hearing is in an environment like this, we may need to bump that up to 3, 4, 5, 600% if
Sure.
we're going to actually engage our audience.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And the processing styles, like that makes sense to me because I mean we have that kind of discussion when it comes around education, right? Some people are
Sure.
more
Sure.
kinesthetic, hands on, others need to listen, others need to read, whatever the case might be. So how do you incorporate something like that inside of a virtual event?
Well, I could give you 1,000 different ways. I'll just give a few examples,
Yeah.
but you obviously a breakout is a really simple example, right? You actually move, even though you're not physically standing up and moving. You kind of move rooms. You move into a smaller group. We send things to people. So hold on, I got stuff somewhere here. So before our event, we send out boxes. I'll show you a box in just a second, but we have everything from fans that go out. And then when you look at, about a week before the event, sorry for the loud noise, this will land on your doorstep, right? And this is filled with some gifts and some goodies and some fun things, but it's also filled with things that accentuate the experience, right? Things that you may do together as a group, an activity or something that you might do. So one
Mm,
of the things to really remember when you're doing a virtual event, sorry, when you're doing a virtual event, is that it's really critical to bring what you cannot touch, taste, feel into your home or your home office and be able to touch, taste, and feel it, right? So I think that's extraordinarily critical. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Some are very expensive ways, some are very inexpensive ways. You can send people things that they can print off and cut out. We obviously know that if you're running it off of Zoom, I think it might be a little over the top now, but there are a myriad of all kind of emojis that you can use and emotions. There's software that allows you to create polls. So you can poll your room and then display those. So there really is 1,000 different ways to do it. It depends on who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and your style and your business.
right. I like that. I loved that box. That kind of emphasize my little thought at the beginning about grab bags walking in. You basically mailed the grab bag to him. But like you said, it's you don't necessarily have to have the big boxes going, although that's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, we send 650 of those for every event. So it's a lot, and not everybody's going to do that, but there are versions of that that you could do. You could do an envelope full of things, or you could do a digital download of things.
Right. Yeah. And I like that. And then it triggers me, if it was me that was creating the event, it triggers me to think a little bit creative and outside of the box. Right. That's what
Absolutely.
I'm really loving about this is it sounds like what you've created with your clients and as you're teaching them is go outside of that box. You
Absolutely.
may be virtual, but you don't have to play the way everybody's played before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can't. You won't. You'll be ignored. I mean, it's just the world we're in. You're not going to be able to compete with me. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. I'm being serious, right? People get used to a standard. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you do a virtual event, you need to go into a studio and it costs $20,000, all of that. But you do have to go. Like, people are used to a certain level of engagement, and I need to be able to meet and reach that certain level of engagement for them to stay with me if I'm doing a 1-day event and to hang with me all day. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, you're triggering all kinds of ideas. This is really awesome. Okay, so talk a little bit, because at the very beginning you were talking about how some of your clients have turned speaking gigs into filling their rooms. Can
Sure.
you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, one of the best ways to fill a virtual event is to book yourself, big or small, in a lot of virtual or in-person stages. I've got a couple of clients who are doing something on April 21st. They're both doing a rather small event. It's just for the day. And they've booked a series of Facebook Live challenges in conjunction with having booked some one-on-one speaking gigs. They've come to organizations or other Facebook groups, kind of like I am here, and are speaking. And, it could be a room of 20 people, 25 people. But if you're doing a free event, or maybe you're doing a $47 ticket, it's low. It's a low price tag. And if you
Mhm.
think about wanting to do your very first event and have 40 people in the room, if you booked yourself on 8 stages and got 3 people to come to your event from each stage, that's 24 people. If you offered those people bring a friend, that's, let's say, 6, 7 more people, 8 more people bring a friend, you're at like 32. Then you get on the phone, or you send a list to your email, an email to your list, or whatever that looks like, to get another 8 people. I do think people get surprised by the amount of volume required to fill rooms, whether
Mm.
virtual or in person. But there just is, like it or not, people are busy, people are distracted, people are not sitting around waiting for opportunity to find you and be in the room with you. That'd be nice if they were, and there's some celebrities or huge names that happens with. But most everybody I know, which are entrepreneurs making zero to their first $1 million, fill rooms by picking up the phone, by getting on stages, by brick, right? Brick by brick, like one person,
Mm.
4 people, 8 people, 12 people. And it does require volume. It requires volume because it is a volume game, and it's an attention economy.
It's a tenacity game. Like, you have to be
Absolutely.
able to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. I mean, when you talk about, just strictly from a sales perspective, it's about volume as well. You might have a great conversion rate, but you still have to get the volume in there. And that's kind of what's going on here. Is you might have a great conversion rate and you might not, depending on the audience. You better be prepared to get in front of another number of audiences to create this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And well, you say a number of audiences. I would take it further and say a lot of audiences, because you can't, again, I've seen people who go, I launched my event, no one registered. They're not going to register. They're not going to register just because you put up a website or just because you put up a landing page. They're going to register because you give them motivation to register. They're going to, oh, this is the first time I think I've ever been on a call where there's an enormous spider crawling on the top of my feeling that just caught my attention. See, it's an attention economy, and I can't ignore that. Okay, I'll breathe through the rest of this. Um, my screen, everybody's had fair warning, right? See, this is live. This is actually a really good example of the fun of live, and something else to think about when you're doing a live event. I've never done pre-records of almost anything because I really like the energy of live. Not everybody loves the energy of live because maybe
Mhm.
they haven't done as much speaking. But the beauty of live, the beauty and the blessing of live, the beauty is you will never have a better energy than being live, even on a virtual stage. The curse of that is that it's live, you're there, the energy goes out, the spider's crawling on the wall, whatever's happening. But you want to lean into that, because in that energy is how people stay alert, in the blooper,
Mm.
in the moments. It's what makes it different between a pre-recorded webinar and a 3-day live event. I can't remember what the original question was because we got interrupted by the spider. I'm so sorry.
Well, it just emphasizes how things kind of web out. We were talking about getting on a lot of stages, to be able to get your web out there, get your exposure. It's not just one stage. A spider doesn't do just one thread. And all of a sudden the flies come in.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's really, yeah, you have to get on a lot of stages, and it really is a volume game. And it's also, the truth of the matter is, the more you speak, the more you have an ability, right? The more you have an ability to convert more people into coming to your event or buying a
Mhm.
ticket to your event. So not only is it a volume game because you just need to put butts in seats, but it's a volume game because the more you do, the less you'll need to do because you can convert at a higher rate.
Right. Well, and it always comes back to that, creating the know, like, and trust with people. And the more people you create that trust with, it you might not get the results that you're looking for your first event, but I think that still builds on it. All the stuff that you did for your first event builds into your second, into your third, and into your fourth because you're
Absolutely.
creating that trust.
Absolutely. 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 And I would say the other thing is go reverse engineer that a little bit. Every newsletter you write, every Facebook live you do, every piece of content that you create, every social media post you make becomes content for your event, right? It becomes information and education and opportunity. People are also like, a 3-day event or a 1-day event, what would I teach? And I was like, well, what have you done for the last 365 days? What emails have you sent? What Facebook Lives have you done? What social media? Take all of that and turn it into content. This book, here's a good example. So this is my latest book that came out that I just probably came out maybe a year ago, Win No Matter What. During COVID, I did a Facebook Live every single day, did it every single day, and built a group called Driven Entrepreneurs. I think it has over 9,000 members. And probably then during COVID, it had like 3,500, 4,000. And so every day I did a Facebook Live, right? And on a different topic, whatever. At the end of COVID, I took every Facebook Live, I transcribed it, I built bridges and transitions, and I turned it into a book.
Repurpose everything.
Yeah,
You
you can do the exact same thing for an event or for your content, all of that. Yeah.
Well, and as I'm listening to you, like that triggered, there's a lot of reels and all of that kind of stuff that are out there. Those can be some of those, like you can actually physically use, well,
Yeah.
physically, virtually use them as some of your pauses in
Yep.
between, right? Like play a couple of reels as you're moving from this speaker to another speaker or from this portion of it to the next portion. I'm hearing that there's, again, think outside of the box. What are some of the things that you've already done that you can reuse in this?
Absolutely. Rinse and repeat, right? There's no reason to keep reinventing the wheel. Now, if you don't have a wheel, you may need to spend. Listen, I'm a big fan of starting doing an event pretty early on in your process, but because you can do an event and have 8 people at it and sell 2 of them into your $5,000 coaching program. I mean, there is value in that, but you just need to think it through. Don't have the capacity to put in 10 people in a room and try to build something where you need 100, right? So you can start off very small, but you do need enough content and information to carry people for a day, for 3 days, whatever it is you're looking at, unless you're going to do something, and this is a different type of event but very doable, unless you're going to do something where you run like a 1-day mastermind where you're kind of going around to each person and you're coaching them and giving them some feedback. That can be a different version. I kind of call that a virtual retreat, but that can
Yeah,
also be a version of that.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You've offered some pretty brilliant ideas. Um, so preparation for something like this, like that's one of the things that um, I'm new to this. Let's say I'm really new to this. I've never really been on a Zoom stage before. What are some of the things that I should pay attention to, learn,
Well,
expose
you
myself
don't want to
to?
do that's not where you want to start. You don't start in an
Okay.
event. So you shouldn't be new to a Zoom stage. You should be, this is what I also tell people. Like, make sure you've done 25 speaking gigs, right? Virtual or in person, so that you've got
Mm,
that, and I don't care if you're speaking for 3 minutes, or whatever that looks like. It can be 3 minutes, or it can be, be invited to be a keynoter for 90 minutes. You want to have talks under your belt so you know what works, what landed, what didn't land, what did people want more of. And you've also built your confidence to go, oh my God, you remember that time I was speaking to the Kiwanis Club and the power went out and I wasn't able to use my PowerPoint and I had to wing. Like, you need some of those experiences before you put all the balls in your basket, right? Because doing your own event, whether 1 day or 3 day or whatever that looks like, virtual or in person, is putting all of your balls in your basket, right? Is it ball, eggs, all of your fruit, all of your tangerines in your basket. And when you do that, right, it's really critical that you're like, okay, I don't need you to be an expert. I don't need you to have 10,000 hours of mastery, but you need to have developed a signature talk and delivered that talk enough that you know where to go and you know what works and what doesn't work.
I like that. I like that a lot because what I'm hearing is that first of all, speaking gigs, they're your training room, right? They are definitely a training room to prepare you for the virtual event. So do some of those first. Then, as you start designing your virtual event, that's those speaking gigs are like your intermediate level training. I also heard you say um, some of that gives you examples of what do people want more of, and it triggered a thought in my mind about comedians taking their jokes to the smaller little venues and the open mics and stuff like
You're
that,
exactly
testing
right.
their material
Jerry,
before they actually do a big event.
yeah, Jerry Seinfeld ends up in a seedy bar in the West Village in New York City in front of 25 people, and nobody knows he's coming. And this happens all the time. And he pops in because he needs to test material. He doesn't go, all right, Madison Square Garden, here we go. I hope this works. Right.
Right.
And it's the same concept. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. That again, that's connecting a few more dots for me. What are some of the things as we're looking at um, designing that first event? And I know for me, I'd probably go for a 1 day versus a 3 day for the
Sure. And I
first
suggest
event,
we'll start there. Yeah.
right? What are some of the things that we would want to, are there things we'd want to gather? Are there systems we would be best to put into place? What are some of those prep things that we should be looking at?
Well, it's all going to depend on your size and your scope and your scale, but the bottom line is that you want a clear end result. I mean, why are you doing this? Are you wanting to sell your first mastermind? Are you wanting to launch a group program? Are you trying to just get 3 private clients because your business is fairly new? So, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you reverse engineer that. I wouldn't suggest doing a 1 day event and selling a $10,000 package. Especially,
Okay.
I mean, if they're super warm, maybe that could happen. But if they're, they kind of know you, that's a short amount of time for you to turn around in a group setting and make that offer. So I suggest a 1 day is usually $5,000 or under in an offer. A 3 day can be $1 million. It can be, anything you want it to be. So the first thing you want to do is really identify what the intention is, what you're selling, and then reverse engineer all of that. Once that's all been reverse engineered, then the next step is that you go, what do I need to get people there? Because remember, the event is a bridge. It's a bridge from the pain to their solution. And so your event really is that bridge. So then you're going to build your content around that. You're going to build your activities and your exercises around that. You're going to name your event based on that. And once you create all of that, you're plugging that in to have, for people to have an exceptional experience for the day. And people always say, what about the offer? What about the offer? I'm like, everybody should really chill out about the offer, because if you do an amazing job, the offer is just an announcement. It's just an announcement. And if you want more of this and you don't want to leave this experience and, this has gotten you so far today and you're wondering how far you can go, I've got an answer for you. Right. And you just share what it is. People are always like, how do I close more sales? You get better, not at sales. Not at sales. We can always get better at sales, sure, but you don't get better at sales. You get better at your delivering your content. I host 2 events a year. I know we're going to tell them about one event later, but my other event I do is called the Captivate event. If you can't captivate and inspire people in the moment, they're never going to buy from you, even if you have the best sales script in the world. So you get so good, they don't want to leave the experience with you, and then you never have to sell anything.
Right, right. And I know that's something that Terry teaches too, is reverse marketing. You're giving so much that they can't help but say, "Hey, I want to work with you."
Absolutely.
Right? And so that makes a lot of sense to me. So when it comes to these kinds of events, and I know we're really, really close to the end of our time here, and I want to respect that. Are these types of events paid events, free events, combination of both?
Great question. Combination. So I don't love for anybody to do free events because obviously you're going to get a lower show up rate and there's less commitment. But if you're doing your very first event, I've seen people do it for a $27 donation to a charity. I've seen people charge
Mm,
$7 for an event. I've seen people charge 47. But typically a virtual event, obviously, I know people who do virtual events and charge $5,000 for a ticket. But what I'm really teaching, what I'm talking to you about, is probably somewhere between a $47 and $197 offer to attend a 1 to 3 day event.
right. And that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So we are at the end of our time, and I want to make sure that the people who've been enjoying this and the people who'll be enjoying it later
Yeah.
get an opportunity to find out about what it is that you're offering. Because I know, again, you've offered a huge amount of content here, and no matter what, they walk away with something of value, but there's an opportunity for them.
Yeah, so we do two big virtual events a year, and my next one upcoming is virtual. You don't have to go anywhere. May 3rd through the 5th. It's called the Yes Event. So if you want to get more yeses without having to sell more, this is the event for you. If you want to learn how to get attention, if you want to learn how to be a speaker both online and offline so that you can easily on social platforms in hotel ballrooms or on virtual stages, you know exactly how to get attention. So you just make an announcement and people rush to the back of the room to buy or click on the link in the Zoom. Then you want to attend the Yes event. We're also going to be showing you how to build a life of yes and then a business that supports that. So you're going
Mm,
to walk away in 3 days with a multiple 6 to 7 figure business plan. You're going to get one of those boxes that I showed you earlier to land on your doorstep the week before the event. And you're going to really understand how yeses are easy when you are interesting and how when you are captivating. So we'll walk you through your messaging, your marketing, we'll walk you through speaking, we'll walk you through exactly how you create a life of yes. And it's 3 virtual days. I know how to throw a party. I know how to create an experience where you will not even notice that you are sitting in your home office. You will be transported. And the ticket is $97 just for those of you who are watching this today. On our website, it's $197. So it's $100 off for those of you here today. It's going to come with the box that lands on your doorstep. It's going to come with a one-on-one coaching call with our team prior to the event to get you all prepped. And then, of course, you attend the 3 days and leave richer than you came.
that's brilliant. I love that. I love that. So for those of you who are in YouTube land, the link is on the screen. So you're definitely going to be able to show up to something like this and go find Suzanne. Again, Suzanne Evans. Go find her on social media. It sounds like you're going to get it. Well, I mean, we've proved it. You're going to get a huge amount of value from her. And be more than the spider on the wall.
Yes, I'm going to catch it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for your
Thanks
time,
for
Suzanne.
having
I
me.
really enjoyed the
Thank you
conversation.
so much.
And I know our listeners are getting a huge amount of value from this.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.